Hi, my name is Brielle Saracini. I'm 24 years old from Yardley, Pennsylvania. I currently live in Stamford, Connecticut, and I work for the Yes Network. I'm the receptionist at the Yes Network right now, the Yankees TV station, but I look forward to one day moving up and working in production. My passion would be to work on features. I went to Boston College. I was a communication and human development major. I have one cat. This is her. I have one sister, and my mom is one of my best friends. I know Pam from summer camp. We went to camp together for many years, and I was friends with her and her sister and her brother. I am a big Yankee fan, as you can tell by working with the Yankees TV station, but I also enjoy the Rangers and I guess the Knicks if I had to choose a basketball team. So, okay, that's a little bit about myself. So I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma stage 4B in August of 2013. I graduated from Boston College in May of that year, got a job with the Yes Network, and started in July of that year, and was diagnosed with cancer 2 weeks after that. After starting that job, I found out in a very strange way. Back in November, before I graduated, November of 2012, I had a flea infestation in my apartment, and my legs were covered in bug bites, and they presented itching because I had an allergic reaction to those bites. The itching persisted and never went away, even though my bug bites did and my bugs did. I eventually moved out of my apartment and lived in a hotel for a couple weeks, but I was still suffering from a very intense itch. The itch is called the Hodgkin's itch, and it's known to be maddening. It makes you feel like you want to rip your skin open, and the only way to stop it is to really dig at your skin and kind of cause bleeding, and then run it under very cold water. The itch got worse during the night for some reason, and but was constant throughout the day as well. I also had other symptoms as well. I had an enlarged lymph node in my neck right here, and I had suffered from night sweats, from lack of appetite, and also alcohol intolerance. So I would take about a sip or two of alcohol and suffer severe leg pain. And I would be writhing on the floor in pain, trying to recover from it, but nothing really helped. It lasted about 20 to 30 minutes after just 2 or 3 sips of alcohol, and was definitely intense. So after a while, it started happening without the alcohol as my cancer grew and progressed, but I was unaware of this at the time. So my story is a little strange. I was seeing doctors frequently about those issues, but no doctor could tell me what was going on, and I finally decided to go to the ER one day because I had blue hands, which is unrelated to all the other problems that I was having. And when the doctors were trying to figure out what was wrong with my hands, they were checking for blood clots in my arms and running blood work, and the blood work and the ultrasound that they were using to check for the blood clots showed that I had growths other than clots. I had lymph nodes that were infected and swollen and problematic. So they admitted me to the ER. They never let me go home. One day I went into the ER, and weeks later we ended up finding out that my blue hands were attributed to some gene dye that I happened to wear a pair of blue jeans that I didn't wash before wearing them, not realizing why my hands had turned blue or that the jeans were the cause of the problem. We thought it was a circulation issue, bringing me to the ER, which then led to obviously bigger problems. So it was kind of divine intervention to send me to the ER, because all the other doctors that I was seeing up until that time couldn't tell me what was going on. And finally, as we went to the ER, we got some answers. So after I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma stage 4B in August of 2013, I did a bunch of testing, a bunch of pre-testing, making sure that I was healthy enough to take the treatment, and making sure we had a level of comparison for the future, just to make sure that things were going well. And so I did all the pre-testing. I saw a bunch of doctors. I chose my medical team. I started chemo about 3 weeks later. I did ABVD chemo, which is the standard treatment for Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I did that for about 6 months, every other Monday. I would show up for chemo on chemo days, do blood work, see the doctor, head over to the chemo room and have an infusion for a couple hours. And then we would go home, and side effects would kick in about 2 or 3 days after each chemo, and I'd be bedridden until the final few days before the next treatment. So this happened for about 6 months. After that, I waited a little bit, recovered from my last treatment. The last treatment was harder to recover from the first, because there is a cumulative effect of the chemo. And after I recovered, I had a clean scan, came back cancer-free, which was wonderful. I got my port out. A port is something that was placed in me to administer the chemo. It's about this big, and it was inserted into my chest right here. And it was kind of like a dartboard. You put the chemo needle through to the port, through the skin, and it stays in you throughout treatment. It's a lot better than accessing your veins, just because the chemo burns with going into the veins, and over time it actually destroys your veins. So the port was a better solution, and it was hooked up straight to my bloodstream, which went straight to where they needed to in my body. So after my clean scan, I got my port out. I went back to work, and after working for 3 weeks, I started feeling the alcohol intolerance symptom again. And unfortunately, I had to go back to the doctor and was diagnosed with a relapse. It was the same Hodgkin's stage 4B as well. It came back just as aggressively the first time. And from there, my doctor and I discussed a treatment plan where I had to get a PICC line into my arm, and a PICC line is basically a permanent IV. It stayed, if you can still see the scar right there, it stays in that part of your arm right before the bend and goes straight to your veins. So basically the PICC line also has the same function as the port. It's external instead of internal, and there are pros and cons to it, but since I was getting a lot more needles this time, and I was having hospital stays that were multi-day injections, they preferred the port because it is external. They could just hook it up really quickly rather than keeping a needle in me that they'd have to take in and out. So my treatment the second time around was a different chemo called ICE. It was a stronger chemo. It definitely knocked me down a little bit more, and then it was followed by a stem cell collection where I donated stem cells to myself. I collected stem cells, and I took shots that grew white blood cells. After the injections, I had a stem cell collection where they put in another catheter in my neck, and they drew out cells, spun them in a machine, and then froze them separately. And then after that, they redonated my cells to me. I went into the hospital for one larger chemo that lasted 3 days, and then I did a stem cell transplant, and then from there I stayed in the hospital for about another 16 days as I got better and recouped from that treatment. So each time I went in for my second round of treatment, which was ice, I would stay in the hospital for about 3 to 4 days, and then after that I'd go home and recover for about 3 weeks, pretty feeling low the entire time. I did that 3 times. I did the collection. After that, I went to the hospital for the final chemo, which lasted a couple days, and then did the stem cell transplant, and then stayed in the hospital to recover for a while. After that, it took about 100 days for me to get my blood back to normal. It took a very long time for me to be able to leave my house or leave my couch. I was too weak to lift a Brita pitcher. I was too weak to pretty much do anything. My hair started growing back probably late October, and I had the transplant in August of 2014. So I'm getting back on my feet now. I went back to work recently, about 3 weeks ago, and everything has seemed to be doing well since. I've had some itching recently, so I have to go back to the doctor and get it checked out to make sure that it's not another problem. But I had one clean scan following my transplant. I had to do radiation as well because the first scan that we got wasn't all too clean. I did a month of radiation for all through November of 2014, and then after that I waited a couple months and finally got that clean scan in the beginning of February of 2015. So after that, I was cleared to go back to work, and hopefully this itching that I'm feeling nowadays is just a symptom of dry skin rather than cancer. So I'll be heading back to the doctor in a couple days to check that out. We're hoping for all good news, of course. And I need to go 2 years before we see if the transplant worked. I need 2 years of clean scans, and it's been about 6 months. So hopefully everything's still great, and that's what we're planning on. Chemotherapy is a very interesting concept. It basically fuels your body with poison and kills everything in you. And that's supposed to get you better, but your body recovers after a couple days or a couple months or however long it takes. It is horrible to go through, obviously. It is very, very... it requires mental patience and strength, as well as physical patience and strength. It leaves you with a lot of side effects: nausea, stomach pains, mouth sores, confusion, disorientation, mind fogginess, eye problems. Mouth sores were my worst for the transplant. Aside from the nausea, it is something that you never wish upon anyone, even your greatest enemy. It definitely was a struggle and a challenge, but it's one of those things where you just get through it. So I gained a lot of weight during the process. A lot of people think cancer patients are thin and frail, and that didn't happen and doesn't happen to a lot of people. I gained some weight from the steroid and just from being so stationary for such a long period of time. So after radiation, I recovered a little bit. I went on a few trips that renewed my spirit a little bit. I went out to California, I went out to Arizona, Colorado, and then I went to Europe. I went to Budapest, Prague, Vienna, and Paris. So after I came back from those trips, which were quite active, I started my own exercise program, and I've been at the gym for 2 or 3 to 4 days a week. So slowly working up from 2 days to 3 days, and then now I'm up to 4. So that's been going really well, and it's been really hard because you start back to nothing. And before I started chemo and whatnot, my endurance was up a bit more, and now I'm still very weak and very tired very quickly. So although I only spend 20 to 30 minutes at the gym, it's still good to get me there and to get me through and active and whatnot. So I need clean scans for 2 years now. So like I said, I got one, and I'm hoping to get a bunch more, and Hodgkin's lymphoma is one of the more curable cancers. So if you're catching it early, your survival rate's about 98%. And if you are more advanced, like myself, your chances go down to about 70. And then if you relapse, your chances go about to 50. So unfortunately, if this transplant doesn't work, my chances apparently go down to about 10%. So we're really hoping, obviously, for good scans. Pretty much there's nothing you can do. You can't let cancer rule your life. Some advice that I'd give to other people are, and that was passed on to me, were to just ignore the statistics. You know, those are just numbers that are thrown at you. There's really no way of knowing how you're going to react or anything, so dwelling on it and making your life miserable because of it is obviously not productive. So the advice that I would give to somebody is try so hard just to do what you love to do and live your life as if nothing was wrong, but within your limitations, and live your life not thinking and dreading the future or worrying or anything. Try to do your best to just stay strong and you know, enjoy yourself, enjoy every day, because it's cliche, but it's every day is a blessing. So that would be the advice that I would give to somebody else. Also, as far as chemo goes, I think that my strength that I used to get through all of this was my support system. I had a wonderful support system. I have a wonderful family, a wonderful boyfriend, so many wonderful, incredible friends. A lot of people offered me love and support, and that really made all the difference in the world. I also looked at Stuart Scott's SB's speech. That also got me through some really hard times, and I had a few motivational quotes. My favorite was, "Just when the caterpillar thought the world was over, he became a butterfly." So it's kind of showing you how, even though you think it's impossible, you must do the impossible, and you must somehow get the strength, because just when you think things are at their worst and are never going to get better, which I did think a few times, I will admit, then you become a butterfly. And I'm out living life right now. I'm back to work, like I said, and I'm unfortunately I have a cold right now, if you can tell my voice, but you know, my life isn't ruled as much by doctor's appointments and medical tests and needles, and I told you a little bit about my treatment, but I've barely scratched the surface. I could go on and on listing all these horrible, horrible things, but I don't want to depress you, so I think I'm just going to sidestep that, and I'll stick to my basic explanation. But as a girl who's afraid of needles, I've definitely had my fair share and more. So I'll keep this more uplifting and try not to dive into the deep, deep, dark, horrible, horrible world that is chemotherapy and transplants. I was fortunate to have a wonderful support system, and like I said, my mom, my boyfriend, my friends.
Looking for a video on Brielle and pictures, there isn't a ton of it, because she took those pictures. She was the one documenting everything with me, and that's her generosity, that's her special thing. She wanted to make sure everyone else was taken care of. She's a caretaker. She wants to get the beautiful shots, not necessarily be in them, even though she may be one of the most beautiful people on the planet, which just makes it more baffling that she's fighting this disease when you're just so beautiful. Inside and out, just a sweet, good person. And just heartbreaking for our camp community to know that she fights this. She's a generous, loving, beautiful person who has endured and excelled. My wildest admiration for how she has handled herself all the way through this. Tough as nails. When camp was in trouble, she went to bat to make sure camp existed, and camp almost went down. And she and her sister were 100% responsible to make sure that people got motivated to keep it. An amazing, wonderful person, my Brielle.
Hi, my name is Amy Callahan, and I am a licensed clinical social worker here in New Jersey. I'm also the director and founder of an organization called the Better Days Foundation, which runs a program called Camp Better Days for children who lost a parent or loved one on September 11th. I'm sure you're wondering why I'm telling you about a September 11th camp I run when this is a cancer survivor class, but this is how I got to know Brielle Saracini. Brielle was about 11 years old when I got a phone call 2 days before camp, and it was this cute little voice on the other side of the phone introducing herself, saying, "Hi, my name's Brielle Saracini," and my father was Victor Saracini, who was a pilot from American Airlines that was one of the pilots that was lost in the terrorist attacks in New York. I met a friend at another camp I went to, and she said that you run such a great camp, and I was wondering if there's still any way I can come to camp. I know it's 2 days away, but I'd love to come. So of course I said yes. I spoke to her mom, and they met us at the bus with their applications and all the stuff they needed, and it was this little girl in this Yankees cap with a big smile who just brought such life and joy to my program and to my life. So fast forward to 2 years ago, when we got the devastating news that Brielle was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease. The first thing we all felt, I think, was real anger. Especially those of us who lost someone on September 11th. It was really just so distressing to hear that someone who had been through so much had to continue to go through so much. So we all put on our game face for Brielle and told her that she could do it and that she could beat this. And when she got diagnosed, it was stage 4. So that was a little alarming to hear. But I knew that Brielle had such an amazing support system around her that I really had faith that she was going to be able to get through this horrific episode of her life. Now, how I know Pam, who's in your class, who's presenting this, is the same way. Pam was a little girl who attended my class due to losing her father on September 11th as well. I don't know if you're going to see Brielle's video before this, but I know that she mentions her boyfriend Sean McGuire. Sean also is a child who was a camper at Camp Better Days and is now an adult, and Sean's actually the director of Camp Better Days now. Sean was by Brielle's side through this entire process. I couldn't have picked a better support system for her than Sean McGuire. That's why I picked him to be the director of camp, because Sean is just someone who's, I don't even know if there's a word, he's just there. He's really has a great head on his shoulders, and he's a very solid human being. And he and Brielle fell in love after meeting at camp. So that's kind of a special story for us as well. So Brielle had an enormous struggle ahead of her, and we try to do our best to support her. My husband, who's filming this, John, he and Brielle are really close, so we tried to keep in touch with Brielle as much as possible and send our love and support. A year ago, we got the great news that Brielle was cancer-free, so we were all thrilled and happy and celebrating. And then come to find out, not very long later, I think a couple of months, the cancer was back and the cancer was worse. So there she was again, facing this horrific obstacle in front of her after going through so much already in her life. We were all devastated for her, and again tried to show her as much support as we possibly could. But Brielle, being who Brielle is, beat this cancer again and has a cancer-free diagnosis right now, so we couldn't be happier about that. I think that Brielle is resilient, is just such a fighter, and really had to dig incredibly deep into her being to be able to conquer this twice. I know when the second diagnosis came, she was devastated. She didn't even really want to tell anyone or talk to anyone about it, and who can blame her? We thought it was over, and there it was beginning again. But again, Sean and Brielle's friends and family stood by her side and helped her through this as much as we possibly could. even not knowing what it was like for her to be going through this, it was just an unbelievable experience. It wasn't until I would talk to Brielle, I'd send her texts once in a while, I'd try to be as supportive I could, but it really wasn't until I saw Brielle, and it was about, it was like September a year ago, that I saw her for the first time after her treatments, and it took me a minute. I had to like take a breath and walk away before I could go say hello to her, because it was at that moment that Brielle looked like a cancer patient to me, and I hadn't seen her like that, and it was scary, and it took my breath away. And I'm someone who works with people that have had cancer. I work with all kinds of clients, but to see my little Brielle looking like a cancer patient was really scary. And so, once I took my moment, it was fine. It became Brielle again. It didn't become a cancer patient Brielle, but it just became Brielle who was fighting a good fight. And I'm happy to report that she's a survivor again, a survivor of a lot of things in life, not just cancer. So I hope this video helps you to understand what her journey was like, what it was like for us who loved her, and to give you a little bit more insight on the devastation of cancer and the beauty of surviving it. It was nice meeting you all. Hi, Pam. Take care.
So thanks for listening to my story. I hope that I was able to kind of describe what I went through a little bit. I know a lot of it is procedure, and unfortunately I can't dive more into the emotional aspects of it at this time, or my grand scheme of things. It's too recent to kind of look at the big picture. I'm still kind of mustering back up my strength and trying to figure all that out, and unfortunately I have to wait 2 years before I am officially cancer-free and calling myself a survivor. But as of right now, my cancer's in remission, and that's fantastic, and we'll celebrate every day. I love working where I work. I love spending the weekends traveling or visiting friends, and I stay busy watching sports and hanging out with people, and I live a normal life. I like I said, I like to travel as much as I can, so currently I'm planning a trip to Iceland, so hopefully that works out, and I'm able to do that for a little bit. So, okay, well, I hope that you guys are fortunate enough to never understand and never really know anyone who understands exactly what I went through. I hope that you guys stay healthy and happy and live a wonderful, wonderful cancer-free life. But I do appreciate you taking the time to learn a little bit more about people who have had cancer and try to understand their journey a little bit. I know I shouted a bunch of medical jargon at you. A lot of it was a confusing timeline, but it's kind of hard explaining something that took 2 years in just a couple short videos. So I hope that Pam is able to answer any other questions about my life or anything. But please just know, if you do know somebody who is going through a battle and you are hesitant to reach out, just know that it can never hurt. It actually helps. I wouldn't be where I am today without the support of my friends and family. Those people were the only reason I kept going and the only reason I kept fighting. And I had a lot of people who have said that they were nervous to reach out to me, but it's just so appreciated and so necessary to get through the battle. So I will say, if anyone does know anybody who they're hesitant about reaching out to or anything, just know that it's okay, and your friends will hopefully appreciate it as much as I did. So thank you guys. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day.